theyeshiva.net.
Are you there?
Here.
Oh, yes, finally. Sort of the miracle of electronics. Okay, can we start? We want to start now? It's on everybody's mind. I prepare the news, which I just read here, and it was very hard to find a story that didn't have anything to do with this virus. I know news tends to be monolithic, but this is the most monolithic I've ever seen it. So we're looking at this from a Jewish aspect, and one of the things that was brought to my attention, in fact, a lot of people have been asking me, is COVID-19 like a plague of biblical proportion? What would you say, Yossi? Are you there?
I'm here. I'm here. You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. This question makes me laugh because I don't know that anyone in this position today would be able to have the authority to make such a statement. I mean, the greatest truth about the coronavirus is that we really don't know. And because we don't know what is going on and what the future holds, therefore there is so much concern and conscientiousness, which is very normal. I don't think there should be panic and hysteria, but the truth about the corona is we simply don't know. This is a new phenomenon. We haven't had, enough testing and research and statistics, and there is so much widespread ignorance, and there is no certainty here. So I think to make a statement about a plague of biblical proportions, I don't think is an appropriate or helpful response to the situation. I don't think it helps anybody, or it's an objectively a true statement.
Okay, fair enough. So, but it's all we hear. It's like I don't want to turn on any type of media.
And how is it going to help anybody? It's a plague of biblical proportions. How do you know? And why this need for generating hysteria and endless fear in people's minds? We are the Jewish people. We have been around for 4,000 years through thick and thin. Whenever Jews have resorted to panic and hysteria, the results have been detrimental. This week in all the synagogues, they're going to be reading the story of the golden calf, which happened as a result of panic and hysteria that Moses was gone, and similar stories in history. What's necessary is not panic. What's necessary is sensitivity, empathy, conscientiousness, and taking responsibility for our future, being responsible in terms of health, following, the guidelines that will, God willing, help curb and curtail and contain the spread of the virus, and know that we are in God's hands.
Okay, let's talk about that God's hand stuff. So if the Almighty wants me to get Corona-19, so is there anything I'm going to be able to do to not get it? So shouldn't I just go on with my life and just like normal as usual, the way it was 3 months ago?
From a Jewish perspective, we don't operate on that level. It's life is a partnership. There's a partnership. Yes, we are in God's hands, and every moment that we inhale oxygen and we breathe and our 40, 50 trillion cells function in the most miraculous, extraordinary way, including the antibodies and the immunity, which is an extraordinary mechanism beyond what even the greatest scientific neurologists can imagine and anticipate, is God in the working. And yet the same Almighty God wants us to be partners in the work of creation, which means to do whatever we can to protect ourselves, to protect our children, to protect our communities, and to protect our planet. And therefore, we have a Jewish and moral and spiritual and religious duty to completely be sensitive to our health, to guard our health and the health of our loved ones, and do whatever it takes.
Okay, our guest today is Rabbi YY Jacobson. We're talking about the coronavirus and what we can, how we should be looking at it, I guess would be the way to determine it. Somebody pointed out to me in one of my classes, and I'm glad people listen in my classes, that during biblical times and early Second Temple times, there was this plague called saras, which is translated as leprosy, but it's not leprosy. It's a whole different thing, and we can go that separate enough for another time. But what happened to a person who had this affliction is they had to go into quarantine. Okay, and that's what was like the big buzzword, because everybody's talking about being isolated and in quarantine. And it was a time when people were isolated, they were outside the city, they couldn't have contact with anybody. And we're told that there were several, 13 or so, different reasons why a person would be afflicted with this skin disease. Talking bad about somebody, gossiping, these things, and there's a whole list of them. Is it possible we could point at any specific or series of specific incidences that might be a reason why there's this pandemic now?
I don't know that any one of us is in the authority to be able to pinpoint and say, this is the reason it's happening. We are not prophets. I'm certainly not a prophet or the son of a prophet. And I don't feel that it's responsible or honest to be able to pinpoint and say, this is the reason. What I do think, however, is true and meaningful and productive is to say something else.
Go ahead.
And that is, every crisis we see as an opportunity. Every obstacle and every challenge and every adversity, all adversity we face is not a random mutation. It's just part of an evolutionary, random, blind fate of humanity that comes from nowhere and goes nowhere, and we're just trying to protect ourselves. But there is providence, there's meaning, there's purpose, and every one of us, individually and collectively, ought to use these moments and this crisis as an opportunity to grow. And I'll just give one simple example. You know, there are a lot of schools shut down, a lot of community centers shut down, sports games, movie theaters, shopping malls, gatherings, and so forth. This is an incredible opportunity to spend incredible quality time with your spouse, with your children, talking, bonding, connecting. A lot of people can't go to work. Yes, there's pain involved. The equilibrium of our life is being challenged. But use it as a tremendous opportunity. People could learn Torah today in ways that they couldn't learn maybe in years. You're home. You could go onto the internet and learn. You could watch my classes if you want, or learn yourself or with your spouse or with your children, or people, you know, in your family that could be together in small gatherings. It's a tremendous opportunity to bond emotionally. People are not rushing out and going everywhere, and I'm here, and we're always out there. It's really a time to fortify your own home. The front lines of civilization are always our own homes. Family life, love, relationships, having fun together, schmoozing together, connecting, arguing, talking about life, exploring life, fathers with children, mothers with children, siblings. It's an incredible, incredible opportunity. Let's use it for positive growth. It's a time of introspection, and it's really a tremendous time of people really going inward into their own souls, their own minds, taking time to reconfigure the trajectory of our lives, our most intimate and internal relationships with ourselves, with our loved ones, and with God.
That's very positive, very powerful. You live in Muncie, which is upstate New York. We call it upstate New York. It's not so up.
Yes.
It's just sort of like lower upstate New York. And it's pretty much just across the river from New Rochelle, which is now become the epicenter of what's going on with the coronavirus. So how are people in Muncie dealing with the fact that they've got this whole situation going on just a couple miles away?
Right. So the truth is that some people here are very, very, I have to say, some people are in panic mode, which, as I told you, I never see that as helpful in any way. But I would say a lot of people here in this community generally have a certain calm to their lives. Some people would call them irresponsible. I would call them irresponsible. I think they understand. People are concerned, but the synagogues here did not close down. The schools did not close down yet. At least many of them did not. Some did. And I think people are trying to be responsible and do what they have to do in terms of disinfecting your hands and washing your hands and being careful with what you touch and, shaking hands and so forth. I went to a wedding last night. Yes, there was a smaller crowd, but it was very, very lively. And, I asked the groom and the bride after the wedding. It's neighbors of mine, so I felt that it was important to go. And I asked them, how they feel. Are they upset? Are they, they feel they have bad mazel because a lot of guests didn't show up or left early. And they said, no, whoever had to be here was here. I said, yeah, that's a good attitude. The most important thing is that the groom and the bride were there. So I think there is a certain, a lot of people, I don't see, I mean, some people are panicking, but I don't see it as widespread, at least in my community.
Okay. Again, our guest today is Rabbi YY Jacobson. We're talking about the coronavirus. What do you do? I mean, being that you're a rabbi, so everybody thinks, of course, you have all the answers. And somebody comes to you and says, but my kid has corona. Rabbi, what did I do wrong? What am I doing? What's that? Fill in the blank, et cetera, whatever their complaint is. How are you gonna help that person, Yossi?
I don't know that a rabbi can answer such a question. What did I do wrong that my child got corona? And it's not just corona. I mean, whenever anything happens to somebody, is there any rabbi who can tell them what they did wrong? Are we even sure why it happens? And it's because they did something wrong. I mean, who understands the ways of God? Life is very, very mysterious. I think the job of rabbis and clergy at this moment is not to give answers to questions that we don't know the answers for, but rather to be there for people, to be empathetic, to be sensitive, to be understanding. And the most important thing is to give people the fortitude and the love and the courage to be able to embrace the uncertainty of life, embrace the fact that so much of life is uncertain, with a certain inner core soulful confidence that comes from knowing that you are not a mistake and every moment of your life has meaning and purpose. And whatever you're going through or we are going through is not coming from a place of negativity and the desire to destroy you, but it's coming from a God who loves you unconditionally. And even the challenges of life, even if we may not understand the reasons for them, are ultimately here to bring us to a deeper and better and truer place. I always tell my students that in Hebrew, there is a fascinating truth, and that is the name we have in Hebrew for a breakdown is called mashber. Mashber, which in Hebrew means broken or breakdown, from the word shvira, fragmented, shattered. It's the same word that the Bible uses for a birthing stool.
Oh, interesting.
Isha yosevet al hamashber. A woman sits on the birthing stool. They used to have birthing stools on which women would sit when they gave birth. And it's a fascinating idea in the Hebrew language that Judaism sees every moment of brokenness as really an opportunity for a new birth. One window closes, another one opens. One door closes and another one opens. One era ends and a new one begins. And we all know that history, whatever happens, history will be able to determine the time before Corona and post-Corona. And we're all hoping and praying that this ends well and with the least possible, health damages to anybody in America and the rest of the world. but it's certainly a paradigm shift in terms of the vulnerability of the planet, in terms of the vulnerability of humanity. And I think we have to really seize the moment to be able to utilize this as a consciousness expanding opportunity. I mean, take even the one simple example, which I've told my people, my community. In 2020, technology has come so far that we often feel invincible. There's the famous book by a fellow Jew, Yuval Harari, called Homo Deus, the author of Sapiens, where he basically says the next step is for human beings to declare themselves God and take over God's role in history. He says we're going to double the lifespan. We'll live 150 years. And he predicts perhaps you'll come into the doctor's office at the age of 95, and he'll basically give you a new refreshed cells and genes, and you'll come out a 15-year-old teenager and live till 160. Now, you have to remember your mother-in-law is also going to live till 160. But that's besides the point. It also means if you retire at 65, you got 100 years to do nothing. So we're going to have to figure that out. But his point is, technology brings us to a place where we almost think we're in control of everything. And here comes this little tiny, invisible creature that nobody can even see with our eyes. And for thousands of years, nobody knew germ theory existed, and nobody knew about microbes and viruses and bacteria, and we didn't even know what a cell looks like, or a DNA or RNA, the host cells that have to host the virus in order for it to replicate. And it's driving the world mad. The whole world is changed, and we're vulnerable. The whole planet was transformed without a single bullet, without a single assassination, without a single event of violence or political chaos. An invisible creature literally turned the world upside down, and everybody is vulnerable. Billionaires, millionaires, multi-billionaires, leaders, thinkers, educators, young and old, everyone is vulnerable. And it's a tremendous opportunity to discover the truth of history. And the truth of history is we were conceived in love. Every moment is a miracle. Uncertainty is essential to the story of life. And the only thing that changed is our delusion of certainty has been shattered because life is uncertain. The only thing we're really certain about is that we are every single moment in the hands of a loving creator who created us, loves us, guides us, and protects us. And we're here to be his ambassadors, ambassadors of the divine in the world, ambassadors of love, light, hope, healing, brotherhood, friendship, goodness, and redemption.
Wonderful. That's going to do it for us today. We appreciate you taking the time, Rabbi YY Jacobson, and cluing us in and at least giving us a positive spin on how we should be handling the current event of the day. And we wish you lots of success, and everybody you know should stay healthy, and we should, listen, I tell people, if there's a Mashiach at the end of this, it'll be worth it.
Amen, amen. Everybody should stay healthy. It's also important to emphasize that, people should be extremely responsible in terms of following all of the guidelines of the health authorities. It's extremely important because all research of history has shown that we as humans can be the partners with God in order to curb and curtail the spread of the virus. And just as medicine has brought humanity to such extraordinary heights, including things as doubling the lifespan from a century ago, because God wants us to be proactive, to be courageous, to be responsible. That is part of our responsibility as humans, as Jews, to be able to take initiative, not to surrender to despair, and not to wallow in the quagmire of depression and fear, but really to have trust. And let's remember that fear and panic are not good for your immune system. From a simple medical point of view, panic and hysteria undermine your immune system. And everybody's immune system has to be healthy these days. And also panic is also contagious. So let's minimize the panic, maximize the trust and the love, do what we have to do responsibly to follow the instructions of health authorities to be able to curb and curtail the virus, and with God's help, stay healthy and use these moments to really expand the inner horizons of our spiritual, psychological, academic, mental, social, and familial lives.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you so much for coming on. We wish you all the best.
And Shabbat Shalom to everybody. And I would encourage all Jewish women and girls before sunset today, Friday, even if you don't do it regularly, to light a special Shabbat candle in your home, all of the daughters and the girls in the homes and the women's in the home. And when you light that candle, I would like to suggest a little meditation. The meditation is that this is a time where people are going to be spending a lot of time in their homes. Some people are quarantined, and even if you're not quarantined, people are not joining mass gatherings for good reason, and you're staying home. And the most important opportunity now is to bring light into your home. We don't have to run away from our homes. This is the place where civilization is built, in our kitchens, in our dining rooms, in our bedrooms, in our family rooms. So let's bring in the light into our homes, learn to spend time with our closest loved ones in fun, in camaraderie, in affection, and in real special bonding.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Shabbat Shalom and good luck and good health to everybody.
Take care.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.